Recording in progress.
This is the Ramana Maharshi 40 Verses on Reality Satsang, a time for self-reflection and self-inquiry. Know yourself and be always free and at peace. I'm Richard Clarke, hosting this satsang. Welcome. I'm a seeker like you, sharing what we love. I've been blessed with years of deep teaching and practice. I bring this to this satsang. This week's reading from 40 Verses on Reality, verse 9. Although the world and knowledge thereof rise and set together, it is by knowledge alone that the world is made apparent. That perfection wherein the world and knowledge thereof rise and set, and which shines without rising and setting, is alone the reality. Who knows the world? The eyes see it. The brain translates the senses into an image of the world, but who knows this image? The world and all things come and go. Something or someone knows all these transitory things. What is this? Who is this? Does the knower of the world come and go, even as the world comes and goes? The world seems real, with a sense of reality that is in each waking moment. So does last night's dream seem real. Trace out, where does this sense of reality come from? What is always real? Now, some note for practice. If you inquire and first ask yourself, do I exist? The same answer will come no matter how many times you ask. You must exist. Otherwise you couldn't ask that question. What is existence? Does it ever change? Is it sometimes more and sometimes less? The sun rises and sets. Do you? Now, on to our videos for the week. The first is from Swami Sarvapriyananda. It is the ultimate truth.
He says, na muktaha, not free. There is nobody who is free. So what does that mean? How do you explain the enlightened people? All these people, Ramana Maharshi and so many others, throughout history, they were free, enlightened people. How do you explain that? What he means to say here is, there is freedom, but nobody who is free. What does that mean? To explain that, let me give another example. I have earlier mentioned this example. Nisarga Datta, somebody pointed out to him, he was regarded as an enlightened being. He lived in Mumbai a few decades ago, in a slum, which is regarded as an enlightened being. That book is there, very popular, I Am That. Somebody said to him, you are an enlightened being, you are Brahmagyani, you are a knower of Brahman. And immediately he reacted in annoyance and he said, and just as a way of teaching, he said, "You are insulting me." Insulting you? Knower of Brahman, that's the highest praise you can give in our civilization. The knower of the Absolute. He said, "I am not Brahma Jnani, I am Brahman. I am not a knower of Brahman, I am Brahman." Pointing out thereby the secret of enlightenment. When you are enlightened, when you know that the Absolute, Turiya, it's not as an object. I know the Turiya, I know the Satchidananda, I know the Absolute, I know Brahman. No. You are that. That's what you realize. You are not a person who realizes the Absolute. If you are a person who says, "I know the Absolute," then you do not know. The Kena Upanishad says, he who claims that he knows does not know. He who knows that it cannot be known as an object knows, truly knows. So, you are not a person who lives eternally. You are that eternal existence itself, Sat. You are not a person who knows that ultimate reality. You are that knowledge itself, Chit. You are not a person who enjoys various kinds of blissful experiences. You are that bliss itself. Swami Vivekananda put it directly. Not that it exists, it is existence itself. Not that it knows something, it is knowledge itself. Not that it is happy, it is happiness itself. Sat, Chit, Ananda. When you become an enlightened person, you are not a Brahma Jnani. You are Jnana Swarupa, knowledge itself. You are not somebody who lives eternally in this particular body. You are eternal existence itself. You are not somebody who has lots of bliss in the mind. You are bliss itself. In the same way, you are not somebody, follow this carefully, you are not somebody who has become free. You are freedom itself. You are not a person who is mukta. Literally the word mukta means a person who is free. The person is never free. You become free of the person. The person does not become free. You think of yourself as a person now, you'll see when you step back from that into your real nature, Turiyam, you're free of the person. The person will still appear, do its job. Every night it will disappear in deep sleep. And one day in death of the body, that personality also will disappear. But you, the infinite existence, which is the background of the person, you still exist. That is freedom, not a person who becomes free. In that sense, na muktaha. You're not a person who becomes free. This is ityesha paramarthata. This is the highest teaching, ultimate truth. What is this ultimate truth? One reality. See one reality. In samadhi, in the deepest meditation, in your waking world here, one reality. In the highest heaven and in the lowest, most infernal hell, I will say boldly, see that one reality, Turiya. They appear in you and disappear in you. In the heights of happiness and success, in the depths of misery and frustration and failure, one shining reality, Turiya. And thus you are free. Stand upon that, establish yourself in that, your real nature. All these are mirages and dreams which come, enjoy them when they come and go. Don't try to, one Zen saying which I liked very much, playing of one thing against the other, desiring one thing that it should be so and it should not be so, this is the disease of the mind. Why is it the disease of the mind? Now we realize, this should be so and that should not be so, I like this and I do not like this. Both of them are you, the consciousness. It shows an ignorance, a preference for this and a dislike for the other. It shows that you do not realize the one reality behind both of them. Such a person will not criticize. Everybody that you meet, everything that happens to you is a manifestation of the light of the divine, your own light. You yourself appear. Whom to blame, whom to praise? This is Vivekananda's lines. One only exists. Whom to blame, whom to praise? Praiser, praised, blamer, blamed are but one. And that one is you. This is the ultimate truth. Vedanta points this out. And now, if you ask Vedanta, You made everything false. There's nobody, bondage is false, spiritual practice is false, the seeker is false, liberated person is false, everything is false. Then what about you, Mr. Vedanta? Are you true or false? I'm translating as Mr. Vedanta because the Swami originally said, who taught this, he said, "Aur Vedanta Babu, aap kya hain?" or Master Vedanta, what are you, true or false? And you know what Vedanta replies? I too am false. Then what is the truth? You are the truth. My only job was to show the falsity of the world, Jagat Mithyatva, and point towards the truth which you always were. Having pointed that out, please excuse me now, release me, let me go. I am also false. Don't hold on to me as the truth. Even Advaita says, it's also a methodology to point out the truth, the one truth which you are. Once you have got that, then let this go also. But warning, Vedanta leaves with a warning. Before you realize the illusory nature of the world appearance, before you realize the falsity of the world, before that if you consider me to be false, then you are trapped forever. You're trapped forever. You must use me to dissolve the world problem and leave yourself as the background, the adhisthana, the ground of that appearance. You are the only reality. This is the ultimate truth. I pray to the Lord that may we get this intuition in our very life, make this breakthrough. When once you walk through these doors and you look back upon the world and see it as yourself shining forth, the work is done. In Buddha's, Edwin Arnold, the song, it is a beautiful poem he wrote, The Light of Asia. No more is birth, no more is death, no more shall delusion weave her charms. I have known thee, this delusion of the world, thy rafters and the roof of magic and spells, it's broken forever. I see the truth now, I am the awakened. I'm paraphrasing. His original words were much more beautiful. May we all get to say that in this very life itself. Realize the truth which is already ours. It's already ours, it exists now in full measure, right now. We just have to see it. With prayers to Thakurma and Swamiji, with their blessings, may we realize this great consummation, this greatest of all adventures, may it come to a culmination in this very lifetime of ours. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.
And now we will listen to Rupert Spira talking about the indivisible reality of all experience.
This is my second weekend with you, and I think I've got two questions, but first I'm going to ask the first question because the answer might be good for the second question also. Something I don't get quite good, because when I listen to your tapes or listen to YouTube or hearing you say, it looks for me that what you're saying is based on an assumption, and there's what my question is about. It is for me as if your assumption is it has to be continuous. There has to be continuity. Because I could say, why should it be continuous? Why can't it be the experience after another and disappearing and appearing? Why should there be?
Okay. It's not a question of whether it should or shouldn't be. It's just a question of what is our experience. Is your experience continuous or not?
I think, yes, it is.
No, not I think. Is your experience continuous or not?
Yes.
Okay. So that is not an assumption. It is an experience. Yes? It's for the same reason that I say experience is continuous. It is my experience that there is a continuity to experience. I am not experiencing now a series of fragmented objects, one after the other. Experience is one smooth, unbroken flow. So what is this smooth, continuous, unbroken flow made of? If it's our experience, it must be real. Experience is the test of reality. Something about experience is unbroken, ever present. Well, when I look at my thoughts, I don't find continuity there. The thought, what a beautiful day it is in Amsterdam. It has already vanished. The next thought, I wonder if it will rain this evening, is a new thought. It started and it stopped. There is no continuity of thinking. Likewise, my feelings or sensations, the feelings of loneliness or hunger or tiredness, none of them last. They start and they stop. The experience of my body, sensations, sitting on this chair, my hands folded together. The sensation appears and then it vanishes. My perception of the world, it starts, it stops. It starts again, it stops. So there is no continuity of objective experience. But there is a continuity to experience. Therefore, there must be an element of experience that remains present, that doesn't start and stop. When I say there must be, I mean there is. It is my experience. It is my undeniable experience that there is a continuity, or more accurately, there is something ever present in experience. Now, if it's not a thought, a feeling, a sensation, or a perception, what is it? And don't say I don't know, because you are experiencing, but you have already said, there is a continuity to my experience. You say that from experience. It's not an assumption. It is your experience. What is that?
I.
Okay, tell us more about, you're right, it's what we call I. When you were a 5-year-old boy, did you not call yourself I? And 10, 15, 20 years old, you've always been calling yourself I. In other words, I refers to that which remains present throughout all experience. We say, I am awake. I had a dream last night. I slept deeply. So I remains present throughout the 3 states of waking, dreaming, and sleeping. Now, what is it that qualifies for I? Perfect. Your answer was perfect. Whatever it is cannot be named. It cannot be known by the mind as an object. And yet it is experienced. It is experiencing itself. It's the unnameable reality of the mind. It is not an assumption. It is an experience. Everything else is an assumption. That there is a world out there is pure speculation. No one has ever found it. All we know of the world out there is perception, which is an experience of the mind. It is the world that is an assumption, not consciousness. Consciousness is the only experience, if we can call it an experience. It is the only experience that is absolutely certain. Everything else is in doubt, except consciousness. And I'm not telling you about something that I have any more access to than you. Everyone has equal access to their own being. In other words, consciousness always has access to itself.
I sense that when you asked me what's didn't even know your question anymore, but this moment when you said it can't be named, the feeling was quite good.
Yes.
And I thank you for that, because it's nice to abide in that
Yes.
sensing or experiencing. Or
Yes, because I noticed that when I asked you the question, I don't remember exactly what it was, what is it that I refers to, or what is it that remains ever present in your experience, you went silent for a long time. You were experiencing it, but you were struggling to give it a name, and rightly so. I give it a provisional name. I call it consciousness or awareness, but only because we want to talk about it here. But actually, your answer was more accurate. There was just this long silence, and I could see there you were touching that, you were abiding, and you were knowing that. You were knowing yourself. And then I interrupted you just as you were about to say something, because I wanted to draw attention to the fact that your silence was actually the real answer. And that is always available to you. Always available, equally available to all of us. You just ask, I asked you a question, what remains ever present in your experience, but you could ask yourself a question, with what is my experience known? How do I know that I am aware? What is the essential nature of my mind? All these questions are really the same question, who am I? They direct the mind away from objective experience towards its essential nature. And thereafter there just remains to abide in and as that. So self-investigation gradually turns into self-abidance.
And now we will listen to my teacher, Nome, as he talks about knowledge of reality.
And whatever you regard as your identity, you will by that regard reality accordingly. So if you know yourself as the self, of the nature of being, consciousness, bliss, absolute and immutable, eternal and infinite, you will know reality as such. And the reality that you know is what you are, so that your being, the reality, and knowledge are identical. If you regard yourself as an individual, you will see individuals everywhere and regard them as real. If you regard yourself as embodied, you will see bodies and other things and a world distinct therefrom and regard them as real. If you regard yourself with some belief and conviction as being the self, but also something else, one who knows about the self, then you will regard as being real the self and other things. If you regard yourself as a thinker, you will take thoughts to be real. In order to know the reality as it is, know God as God is, you must know yourself as you are. What do you use to determine reality? If you examine your experience in your own mind closely, you will see that whatever the definition is of the I, such is inextricably woven together with what you regard as real. What do you use to determine what is? Do you use the senses? Do you use thinking? What do you use to determine what exists? Whatever it is that you use, you will find to be directly connected to the definition that is regarded as yourself. What is the true definition of yourself? Can you be a body? Are you the senses? Are you a sensing entity? Are you something sensed? Who are you? Though you are the one who knows all thoughts, can you be thought of? Can you be conceived? Are you a thinking entity? What is your own nature? The individual to whom is attributed various characteristics and forms, the one who would have the senses, have the mind, and so forth. Is this what you are? Or do you exist when that ego I subsides? If reality determines itself, if reality comprehends itself, that is, the self knows itself, and of course is itself, then there is nothing else to be known. That state in which there is nothing else, in which there is neither a separate I nor anything other, in which division is impossible, which does not have a beginning or an end. That is your real state, your own being. Abidance in that, as that, can rightly be called knowledge. Any other conception, based on assumptions unexamined, is better called delusion than actual experience. If the one who is deluded inquires into his own nature, the delusion, being nothingness, vanishes. The unreal vanishes, the real remains, knowing itself. To determine who you are, you must use, so to speak, that which you are to know. If you use something else, such as the senses or the mind, you're guaranteed to come up only with a false answer. If you use your own self is the answer. And there is nothing lost or to be found. Question yourself deeply, inquire deeply within yourself as to who am I? Do not imagine yourself to be apart from yourself as if you would know it as an object. Objective knowledge is only knowledge so-called. Really it is ignorance. That which is non-objective, which is not set up in the dualism of I and this, is real knowledge. What do you regard as real? What do you use to determine what is? One must be God to really know God. The reality of the self, God or Brahman, alone is capable of knowing itself. But in that knowledge there is no alternative. Where there is no alternative and no division possible, where the unborn and the uncreated alone is, such is non-duality. Examine your own experience completely and thoroughly in order to realize non-dual truth. Examine what you regard as yourself. What is it that is referred to as I? If that is known, reality knows itself.
And now we will take a few minutes to meditate, to inquire. Breathe in and breathe out. Long, slow breaths. Notice the breath as it comes in, as it goes out. Notice that you exist. You exist, and you know that you exist. You don't have to think about it or feel it. You know that you exist. Now, investigate within yourself, within your experience. What is this existence? Does existence ever change? Is existence sometimes more and sometimes less? Who am I? What is the nature of my identity? All right. Now let us finish with a short chant. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Peace. 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 Thank you for letting me share this teaching with you. This series on Ramana's 40 verses on reality will continue in the coming weeks. If this was of interest to you, I have more: a free book site, a YouTube site, and my blog. The URLs will be on screen next.